Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Where is the next location for the next Gigafactory? Something that seems to get a lot of curiosity. When Elon announced there was a good chance said location might be revealed later this year at the shareholder meeting, we heard a cacophony of people shouting out Canada. But Tesla are not messing around. They want factories up fast. They can't wait around for years to get permits for building. Elon said that if they'd built Giga in California, they still wouldn't have broken ground by now. This was a big factor in choosing Texas in the first place. Some places just make things easier to do business. Same with China, obviously. Very quick to get a new factory up and running there. And this is one of the issues with Canada, which is why I don't think the next Giga location will be there. Or I should say, why I didn't think it would be there, as Tesla have a no-holds-barred attitude when it comes to saving the world. We heard back in June that Tesla were definitely looking at a new site, or sites, in North America. We are looking at sites, but we are considering some site options more broadly in North America, so including Canada and Mexico and the US as well, says Elon. In the past, Elon has said that Northeast US would likely be a future site, or at least in that vicinity. It's just numbers. Look at the population it would cater to. If your customers are that much closer to ship to, it facilitates logistics. But of course, equally in that vicinity is Ontario and Quebec. And those two provinces alone have over 23 million people too. But of course, all the other surrounding states too. In fact, in a radius of about 300 miles, you have a population of over 120 million people. And this is a generally reasonably affluent market. Okay, sure, in the likes of the big cities like New York, not as many people may have cars. But still, that is a really large catchment area of what is Tesla's biggest market, and also receiving a $7,500 tax credit on top of that. Also, no shortage of very high skilled labour in that area too. Even all the Ivy League colleges there, along with MIT, which can probably churn out a few graduates that know a thing or two about robotics. Seems obvious now, doesn't it? Especially given it's a North American company. Consumers tend to favour a local product compared to foreign imports, especially when they're in such high quality and the leaders in their field, and produced even more locally than Texas. This is what led me to believe that Ohio would likely be the next location. It sounds like it's an easier state to conduct business, and Tesla won't struggle too much getting a new factory built quickly enough. It is also well positioned well within this radius we're talking. On the other hand, there may be cities or states that actually know what's good for them, and will thus attempt to compete for Tesla as their next location, like we had for Giga. The city of Tulsa in Oklahoma doing whatever it took to offer incentives for Tesla to base there. I believe they may have even at one stage offered to change their name from Tulsa to Tesla, though it might have been a joke. The same was true for Giga Nevada. Tesla got a lot of tax breaks for locating there. Don't forget either that Gigafactory 2 is actually already located in New York. But it would appear Tesla are taking a new tactic in their business style, something they've done very little of in the past: lobbying. That's right. Tesla are now supposedly lobbying the Canadian government for an accelerated permitting process to build a factory in the country, whilst also scouting for locations in, you guessed it, Quebec and Ontario, although also visiting various mining and processing companies there too. Canada's Industry and Innovation Minister even confirmed that they are talking to Tesla about locations there. High-level Tesla employees have also been reported to have visited Vale's Canadian operations. Right. Canada is one extremely resource-rich country that also has the 6th largest nickel reserves in the world, with the largest mines all around Ontario, Quebec and Newfoundland. We often hear Elon talking about economies of location, sourcing everything locally, and it is certainly better for a nation to export a finished product rather than the raw material. But it is often nations that export the likes of ore that may not have the human capital, resources or industrialization to manufacture said materials. For example, imagine exporting lumber, receiving cents on the dollar compared to exporting the furniture it could be made into, just as a basic example. You add value with human capital and equipment. Tesla wants Canada's resources either way. It would therefore be best for the Canadian government to manufacture the resources locally, not to also mention the obvious fact that it offers far more employment for the country. And this is Tesla we're talking about. Why aren't more nations bending over backwards to help Tesla set up? Canada offers skilled labour that even have experience in auto manufacturing, although no domestic Canadian brands, which might also mean less of a fight against Tesla moving in. I think labour in Canada is slightly lower cost than the US, but not to much of an extent that will affect costs overly. There should also be plenty of high-skilled labour outside some of the major cities. Tesla will still need to place their factory where there is good labour and near cities that people actually want to live in, a lesson they likely learned from Giga Nevada, whereas Austin is a much more sought-after location. Good talent have options on where to work and live, although it gets pretty cold in Canada, but the Canadians are used to it and the cities are designed around it. I lived in Montreal for a few months in the summer and it was a great city. However, Toronto does have Lake Ontario and Lake Erie that might perhaps make vehicle deliveries easier and lower cost. Not sure, but there are obviously a plethora of things to factor in when determining location. But what if Tesla are looking at Canada as a site, and others, and considering them all, as in we'll build multiple sites? Like I say, Tesla was a mere fraction the size it is today when it initially announced Berlin and Texas, two enormous sites to take on at once, when they had far less resources. These days, Tesla could perhaps manage 3 or 4 new sites at once maybe. Does that seem too out of the question? Could you imagine that? What if there was one in Canada and in the US? This really is a massive population area. Perhaps multiple sites are to be considered. But what is the holdup? It's been 2 years since Giga Texas was first announced, and we haven't had any official new locations announced since. That's a long time compared to when Tesla were making a new factory a year. Shanghai Model 3, then the Y, Berlin and Texas, and then nothing since. Well, we know why. Cells. Where are the cells coming from? Perhaps Elon just wants to make sure he's got the 4680 production right, and then suddenly he can sign off on a few more locations immediately. Just making sure all the resources are available first, and supply chain, that it is actually all physically possible. Then perhaps 3 or so more factories may be announced in a small period of time, and perhaps all be complete and running sometime around 2024. Yeah, a lot of people speculate that Tesla may hit a run rate of around 10 million by 2025. This is one possibility, with, of course, more factories in the pipeline, but there will come a time when Tesla needs an alternative to nickel cells in the 4680. And although Elon has ruled out LFP 4680 cells, he hasn't officially said they won't be LMFP or manganese. If they can create a new cathode with the dry battery electrode process, using manganese in the cathode and substituting nickel, then I can see it all running like clockwork. My theory being that Tesla will design a new form factor for their in-house LFP cells that will be designed around energy storage and perhaps no actual in-house LFP cell for vehicles. Either way, we look forward to the announcement of the next location, which did sound like it may be soon, when Elon was saying it at the shareholder meeting, indicating sometime this year. Well, that might be the Q3 earnings call perhaps. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.